Hi, welcome to Business Influencers. I'm your host, Chris Salem. Welcome if you are a new listener to the show. You found us here at the TALRadio.org platform. And again, we hope you're enjoying all the great episodes, not only with Business Influencers, but all the great shows with other hosts that the TAL Radio provides for you, the listener, and allowing you to tap into the types of content that are going to best serve you personally and take your business to the next level. We want to thank also our existing listeners that have been with us since day one. Over 4 years ago, we started on this platform with the Touch of Life Foundation. And again, we are committed to your success and help raising your level of influence and taking your business in terms of influence to the next level. Our show can also be followed on Spotify, Apple, and YouTube, because we have a video portion of the show on YouTube and, of course, the TALRadio.org website. With that being said, our show is being brought to you today by Alumni Direct. Alumni Direct is a new social media community platform dedicated to bringing alumni together from all different generational types and an opportunity to meet new people for the first time. Now, it is a membership program taking out all the noise out of social media. You get to generate genuine and authentic relationships with the people you choose to interact with. If you'd like some more information about Alumni Direct, check them out at alumnidirect.com. That's alumnidirect.com. Well, we got a great show for you today. I'm really excited to be talking about this topic. We're going to be talking about the intersection of neurodiversity and entrepreneurship. We are with our subject matter expert, Craig Murphy. And this topic is going to really look at how being neurodivergent, think of like ADHD, autism, dyslexia, can be a superpower in your business. I can attest to that. I was born with ADHD. However, I lived in the negative side of ADHD for the first 31 years of my life until I was able to now learn how to work with the positive. Well, you're going to be hearing the expert that's going to be sharing with us here today. His name is Craig Murphy again. He has over 25 years experience with website design and development and started ALT or Alt Agency almost 20 years ago. Craig has built a team of digital experts that ensure client projects are not only delivered on time, but are geared to making a measurable return on investment. And you're going to get all the contact information, how you can connect with Craig later on the show and also in the show notes. And without further ado, we welcome Craig Murphy to the show. Craig, how are you doing today?
Thank you, Chris. That was a very good introduction. Thank you. Really appreciate that. Thank you.
You're welcome. Great to have you here. We always like to start the show, in this way, getting a little backstory, Craig, about, this topic, this intersection of neurodiversity and entrepreneurship. Entrepreneurship, can be very, a daunting type of experience, especially when you're just getting into it for the first time. We got to be involved in almost every aspect of the business. And hey, if we're dealing now with neurodiversity, if somebody has ADHD, ADD, there could be autistic on a different, whatever spectrum that may be, dyslexia, any of those things. How are share with us if anything from your backstory plays into that and what you're going to share with the audience here today.
I got diagnosed with, they used to call it Asperger's, now it's just autism spectrum disorder. So Asperger's, it's more the social side of things and your understanding and how you communicate with people, which was something that I always struggled with. But I didn't get diagnosed until quite late in life. I was 36, so I only got diagnosed 2 years ago. So I went through. I got my first computer when I was 12, built my first website when I was 12 as well. It was a bit strange because I was always fascinated by the internet and the potential of what it could become in years to come. We're going back to 98, 99, early 2000s back then, so dot-com boom and crash, funny enough, around about that time. And I worked by websites and just got into understanding how they were built and HTML, PHP, that kind of stuff. And when I looked at my first HTML code, no experience, no formal education in computer coding, I just looked at the code and said, I'm guessing that does that, this does that, that does that. And it was just natural to me, coding was. And I think people, from what I understand, people with autism, they're usually either very good at code, formula, systems, that kind of stuff, numbers, or very good on the artistic side. I was very, very weak on the artistic side, but very strong on the coding side. So I think just naturally, I said this ability, which I didn't know at the time. I think looking back now, it's an autistic trait, was that I could just read code and understand code where it does without any real formal education or understanding of how it actually works. I was very, very fortunate that I understood that, and I managed to build a, relatively successful business from that as well.
Wow. No, thank you for sharing. Asperger's, I was born with ADHD. I had the hyperactivity for the first 5 years of my life. It was no coincidence I got kicked out of 4 nursery schools at the age of 4 because of my hyperactivity. But then it was the attention deficit disorder part, that end of it that obviously had controlled most of my rest of my life up to the point when I was 31. Now, I've been able to manage my symptoms very, very well without medication over the last 26 years due to, a daily routine that I do each and every day to keep me focused. But in allowing me to tap into that positive side of ADHD, because there's always a positive side to all these things. I don't look at these things as, diseases or disorders. These are just different spectrums of the brain and how it operates. Love to hear your insights, on neurodiversity and, start there and then kind of, how you weave that in and how we can build our businesses from that. If people are, may have this and know it or may not know it like you did until it was a few years they found this out.
Yeah, I was probably the opposite to you growing up. I was quite quiet and reserved and not so hyperactive. I was probably a bit docile, to be honest with you, the complete opposite, very shy, very quiet, very reserved. But no one really, I always struggled with numbers, funny enough, up until I was about 18, 19, 20, something like that. And then numbers just clicked in my head. It was like a light switch going on. I think growing up, speaking of light switches growing up, I think things have always been very black and white, or like the light switch is on or the light switch is off for me. When people explain things to me growing up, and even sometimes now, somebody will explain it one way to me. So with autism, I call a spade, right? Some people will call it a shovel, some people will be fancy and call it an earth-moving device or something like that. And so I don't really know what you're part of it, I just keep the language very simple.
Yes.
It has to be very, very specific as well, not vague, not let's catch up, it's got to be right. By this date, we'll do X, Y, Z, just so I've got a list to work from. I've always been very good with lists. I've got my list at the side of me, which I'm looking at right now. So that just helps me stay focused throughout the day. If it's not on the list, it won't get done. But yeah, I just have to focus on tasks which really are going to move the needle really, and not get distracted with things or get caught up with email. But I think it was just very difficult growing up, looking back, not at the time, because being very quiet, not very open, didn't really know what feelings were, how to express them, how to understand them, to process them, that kind of stuff. I think the music I listened to, I listened to The Cure, Susie and the Banshees, the Bauhaus, really good
yes,
stuff.
I remember those bands, yes.
Yeah, back in the 80s, so yeah, we're going back up best part of 40 years now. Listening to that music and being part of the goth culture, I think that was probably a sign that no one really picked up on. A lot of people think it's rebellion. I wasn't a rebel at all. Obviously, I'm very, very compliant and very, like order and order, routine, systems, that kind of stuff. Where if my routine breaks, it can really upset my balance. So yeah, I think that's really they're traits that I had growing up that I'm a lot more aware of since diagnosis and my research into Asperger's/autism.
If you have an entrepreneur that might be struggling in certain parts of their business, or maybe they know they're good at something, but they're just now allowing the negative side of what they're doing in their business, that could be, now they're getting caught up maybe in the negative side of what they may be dealing with versus the positive side. Some insights that you could share from your experience that could help them to kind of make that shift, to kind of focus on the things that can benefit them from their neurodiversity.
Yeah, sure. So I think one of the great positives from it is that some of the best entrepreneurs that I know, and I'm not talking small business, I'm talking people who run multi-million, 100 million, billion pound businesses. By their own admission, they've got some sort of neurodiversity included, whether that's like autism, OCD, goes hand in hand with autism, and dyslexia as well, which you mentioned earlier. Some of the best people I know who run the biggest businesses have got these traits in them. I think for me, it's just playing to your strengths, but I think as well with autism, your strengths can be your weaknesses as well at the same time, right? So what I mean by that is I'm very, very, very focused, the opposite of ADHD. So when I'm into a task, obviously Asperger's, they call people professors, right? Because they'll obsess over the tiniest detail and know a subject inside out. So, but at the same time, you can go too far as well. So it's having those boundaries as well, because you can know way, way too much about stuff and add all these not maybe slightly unusual interests growing up, like world wars and numbers and like historic stuff like recessions and this kind of stuff. I was very into Titanic, all this kind of stuff. They're a little bit unusual, but I know absolutely everything about them inside out. And it's just knowing what our strengths are, to use it to your strength and to set the boundaries as well, which is something I never did. Like if we had a coding problem, I would just sit there all night coding away until I could fix it, just trying like the old Thomas Edison's 10,000 ways to do a light bulb. I believe there's many different ways to solve a problem, so I'd always just be there hammering away, completely relentless, shut off to the rest of the world, no idea what's going on around me, just focus on trying to solve that problem. But suddenly, days have gone by, hours have gone by, the night's gone by, and you've lost track of what's actually going on around you, and you can get lost in the real reason why you're trying to solve that problem, right? So it's having that time to step back and reflect is a word I always struggled with, because people say, oh, reflect on it. I never really knew what that word meant. Yeah. And it took a bit of time reading through to what reflection is and what you should be doing. I'd be like, well, what do you want to do? People that take some time out. I'm like, okay, I'm sat here taking time out. I don't know what to do, how to reflect. But there's courses online. People like Pathiker, I think his name is, who does like CR masterclasses. He teaches about reflection, and there's plenty of books out there on reflection, which I've had to read and make a list of questions about, just to remind myself this is how you reflect on the problem, what you should really be doing.
Yeah, no, thank you for sharing that. And I hope, listeners, that any of you that are listening to the show, you might be able to identify, because there might be, there are so many people in the world that it might be on different spectrums of ADD, ADHD, autism, Asperger's, it could be dyslexia, whatever that may be, and it's okay. It's okay. I'm the first to raise my hand. I've been talking about my ADHD for years and not ashamed of it in the very least. And matter of fact, some of the most gifted people, like Craig, are learned how to work with it and optimize the strengths from it. What other things can you share, Craig, that can help entrepreneurs that are listening to the show, or those that are aspiring to go into entrepreneurship, but maybe said, I didn't want to go there because of my ADD or my dyslexia. I can't, how could I possibly manage a business? Who would take me seriously and not limit themselves?
Yeah, I think if somebody's thinking that, I think you've probably got the better skill set than most people, because you look at problems different. So I think you've already got a bit of a head start having any type of neurodiversity. Look, running a business is hard. I don't know what it's like to run a business and not be neurodiverse. I know it's a bit strange to try and explain. I'll try and think of it sometimes. But yeah, when I speak to friends, if they run businesses and they'll switch off at 5 o'clock and they think of problems different. I think with me being neurodiverse and a bit OCD, you never switch off. You're always thinking of problems. You're always thinking of the worst case. And you have to stop yourself and speak up with people. One of the best things I ever did was get a mentor involved, and then they put me with an accountability partner. And it's just someone to share the stress with, because it's lonely and tough. Anyway, and if you're neurodiverse, when you tend to keep it in your head, I think, when you're neurodiverse, but when you say it out loud to somebody else, they'll be like, what have you been thinking about that? What have you been focusing on that? Especially somebody who's not neurodiverse, because they've not seen it the way you see it, and then they can refocus you on the things that really matter. Because I think with neurodiversity, your brain really can run away with you with worst case scenarios and not focusing on things which are going to move the needle. So getting a mentor or some kind of accountability buddy on board, even just a friend who runs another business, just to catch up once a week, to say, here's what I've been doing this week, here's what I'm stressing over, just to get a different opinion on it that you perhaps can't see within your brain. But I think of it as almost like, I speak to my friend about it earlier today, funny enough. I think it's almost like a dial, where some days you can just breeze, you're in the flow and there's no issues at all, and it just works and you understand what's going on. And then other days that dial is turned up to 11, right? And it's just complete chaos. You can't get a break. You don't know what's going on. The world's going to end. There's a Scud missile running, being fired at your house. You just like, I don't know what to do, I think. And it's that intensity. I think when you're aware of that, you can try and dial it down a little bit by speaking with other people and being open, having your network, and Think and Grow Rich, which I think is probably one of the greatest books ever written by Neil. He speaks about having a mastermind, and having that mastermind and the people around you, they can just share that load and just show you different ways, different views of looking at the problem you've got to try and solve that problem, and not stressing yourself lying in bed at 3 a.m. thinking, oh God, this is going to happen.
Oh yeah, that was me many years ago. Those racing thoughts and always overanalyzing and overthinking, and that was me many years ago.
Yeah, I think it takes practice as well, because with autism it can be very black and white, as I said earlier, almost like a light switch being on and off. These dials, they can't be turned on or off. They've got a big dial back, and it takes a lot of practice. It can't be something that you just go, right, that's it, I'm not going to think about this anymore. That can help. That can be a start, right, to kind of shake you out a bit, but it doesn't work in the long term. You've really got to work on balancing that dial, going away, figuring out where it is. Running works very well for me, so I go for long runs, and just that's where my brain doesn't seem to work at all. It's just completely silent, and I'm going at 1 billion miles an hour to my feet instead of my brain going at 1 million miles an hour.
Yeah, great point. No, thank you for sharing there. And so this is a process. Just like entrepreneurship, no one's going to become like successful overnight. It takes a process, just like with your business, your agency. Like it wasn't like you opened the doors and everything, you were super successful overnight. It took time. You had to build it up and add people like you've done. And, so just like, with with the neurodiversity, we got to look at it as a process. Like, again, we may never be fully, cured, but maybe that's not a thing we should be seeking. Maybe again, this is just the way your brain thinks, and instead of trying to fit in and be like everybody else, it's utilizing the strengths from that and doing that. What would you suggest somebody that has been fighting it all along, but now they can turn towards it and use it efficiently, like I said, like what you've already kind of shared here already with, moving the needle, so to speak, forward with their business.
I think when you're in this situation, it's like I was speaking earlier about different, the way I call it spade to spade. People say different things. So I think when people are going through this and reading things, they might need to read 10 different things for one of them to click and be like, oh, that's what it meant right now. And yeah, so I know how hard it can be for people to take things in and understand what people really mean. But I think it's hard. You've got to not fight against it and just embrace it and just go with who you are. With autism, masking is a phrase they use, which is people trying to cover up who they truly are to really fit in. Unfortunately, you're listening to goth music and having been into the goth culture and that kind of stuff. I've never wanted to shy away from that. I was never really aware of it, really. But I think you've just got to figure out your strengths are, have somebody who can have that accountability versus a mentor, accountability buddy, and just help them guide you through it. Because when that dial's to 11, you don't know who you are, you don't know what's going on. It can feel like the whole world's going to end, and you need somebody to bring you back to what's considered like a reality, right, wherever that might be. Because I think it's really hard to understand how someone who isn't neurodiverse thinks, and yet you kind of got to watch their behaviours and try and almost mimic their behaviours, the way they do, the way they think, and listen for the patterns, because you'll never know being neurodiverse how somebody who's not neurodiverse thinks. It's impossible. And I think that was kind of a bit of a switch for me when I thought like that okay, I need to listen and understand how other people are reacting and try and just bring that into my everyday life. Does that answer the question? Sorry.
Absolutely, totally. Yes, thank you. And we hope, listeners, that you're writing this stuff down. Again, we encourage you to go back and listen to this show, as Craig has shared a lot of great insights. And again, I'm hoping that people that are listening can feel safe, psychologically safe, knowing that Craig and myself, people that maybe you looked up to Craig for the work he does in digital, media, looking up to me as a business acceleration strategist. Hey, instead of looking at this as a negative, we look at our how we think in a positive way and utilize that. Craig, anything else that you'd like to share about this topic that we have not covered that you feel is just really going to be really beneficial to what the listeners could utilize for themselves and their business?
There's so many different things to different people, depending on how it's interpreted, but I think you've really got to embrace the strengths of it, as you were mentioning earlier, and just really lean into them, and not be ashamed of it. Just perhaps stop the stigma around it that there was maybe 20, 30 years ago. I think to some degrees, the dials are turned up differently for different people to some degree anyway. But you've just got to really go for it. I think Nike have got the best tagline ever. Just do it. I think once if you are hesitant to start your own business, I know people have got bills to pay and all that kind of stuff, but if you're deadly serious about it, the neurodiversity should propel you along and not hold you back at all, because it really, really, really is a differentiator in business owners. The really successful ones tend to have that dial on the neurodiversity scale turned up to some extent anyway. So yeah, definitely don't hold back. Go for it. It's not the end of the world if it doesn't work out. There's always 1,000 different ways to approach.
Always another way to do it. Yes, we learn from what doesn't work.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, 100%. Like the old Edison adage, it's 10,000 different ways and attempts to do the old light bulb. You just got to keep going. And with neurodiversity, the strengths, persistence, that desire. You've really, really got to play into that persistence to just stand there and just be a little hacker and just keep hacking away bit by bit and just keep going and never ever give up. I never saw failure as an option at any point. It was just, okay, if this step one doesn't work out, let's do it a different way, and to try a different thing and just keep adjusting it. I think one thing I've had to learn is it's a moving target, or like an art rather than a fixed science. There's no fixed path. It's just try, see what works, what doesn't, and go all in on what works and stay away from what doesn't.
Yes, great insights. Thank you for sharing that. Well, I know as we get we're near the end of the show, and I want to make sure people get to know you better. If you could share with us just any final comment in 20 seconds that you'd like to leave with the audience, and let the audience know how can they best get in contact with you. What are you up to? What would you like to provide them? And first off, before you do that, I want to thank you personally for taking time out of your schedule to be with us here today, not only for myself, but the rest of the team here and at our organization at the Touch of Life Foundation.
Oh, my pleasure. Thank you. And for everyone listening as well, I hope there's some advice in there somewhere that just helps you on your next step of your journey for sure.
Yeah, great. Share with us how we can get in contact with you. What are you up to? Anything you like to provide the audience with?
Yeah, so what we're up to real quick, obviously I run the web design agency, Alt Agency, altagency.co.uk. On LinkedIn, I talk a lot about running a business with neurodiversity, so you can find me on LinkedIn, which I believe will be in the show notes, but I think it's linkedin.com/Craig Murphy Alt, A-L-T. I believe it is on there. I share a lot about neurodiversity, so yeah, there's lots of help tips on there. Yeah, if somebody's struggling or just wants to drop me an email, my email is Craig, CRAIG @altagency.co.uk, and always willing to share experiences and pay back what mentors have given me over the last, God knows how many years it's been, 15, 20 years.
Thank you so much, Craig, for sharing here. We highly encourage everybody to reach out to Craig on his website, his company website, also on LinkedIn. We'll make sure all of that is in the show notes. Again, this is a great opportunity to lock arms with people that have walked in your shoes and perhaps now are in a place where you desire to be. So get to know those people. And these are people, we can all help each other. And that's what we're all about here at Business Influencers. So again, we encourage everybody listening and those listening, share this show to someone you care about. This is a great show that they can connect with here and get to know Craig Murphy. Craig, thank you so much again for taking the time to be with us here today.
Pleasure. Thanks for the invite. Really appreciate the opportunity to speak about it. Thank you very much.
Our pleasure. And listeners, we want to thank you each and every week joining us here at Business Influencers. Again, we are committed to bringing in subject matter experts like Craig in each and every week to help elevate you and your level of influence, including your business, to the next level. It's through influence we can empower and encourage our audiences to do for themselves or do with us to have better experiences. So again, as we always say, that you're always the example, always the resource. Make sure to fill your cup and make sure to share that with others through your example each and every day to help elevate, empower, encourage, and lift them further. Till then, everybody, have a great rest of your week, and we'll see you here next week at the same time here at Business Influencers. And again, make sure to check us out on Spotify, Apple, and YouTube, in addition to the TALRadio.org website where you can also listen to the show. Take care, everybody, and have a great day.